Why did Kamala Harris lose the 2024 election to Donald Trump? Well, according to Joe Biden, it's because Americans are sexist and racist.
Why do you think the vice president lost, and were you surprised?
I wasn't surprised, not because I didn't think the vice president was the most qualified person to be president. She is. She's qualified to be president of the United States of America. Right. But I was surprised. I wasn't surprised because they went the route of the sexist route, the whole route. I mean, this is a woman, she's this, she's that. I mean, it really, I've never seen quite as successful and a consistent campaign undercutting the notion that a woman couldn't lead the country, and a woman of mixed race.
Yeah. Yes, that was the 82-year-old dancer during his appearance on The View. And as you just heard, there was no one on that panel pushing back and challenging what the former president said. No one was willing to step in and acknowledge that Kamala Harris was not the best person for the job, not by a long shot. Possibly because of her track record. As we know, she was responsible for opening the southern border with Joe Biden. She picked Tim Walz as her running mate. What a joke that was. She has a history of pushing a woke agenda. We saw her bomb nearly every sit-down interview that she did. Plus, she blatantly lied to the American people that Joe Biden was all there, and that did not help her win votes. But it's easier for Joe Biden and the Democrats to just hide behind this false narrative that they continue to push, that somehow Donald Trump managed to win all 7 battleground states and the popular vote with more than 77 million Americans voting for him, because they must all be garbage. And looking at the data from the election result, well, 45% of women, they didn't vote for Kamala Harris, they voted for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump also set a GOP record with Latino voters. 46% of Latino and Hispanic voters voted for Donald Trump, which was the biggest share by a Republican presidential contender in modern times. Now, to give the hosts of The View some credit for this interview, which was more like a love fest, at least Alyssa Farah raised the question with Joe Biden about his cognitive health, that multiple Democratic sources have claimed there was an obvious and steep decline in his cognitive ability, something the president still denies. But what was so uncomfortable to watch yet again is Joe Biden struggling to answer that question, to the point that his wife, Jill Biden, had to step in and then talk about how Joe Biden would sometimes have to stay up past his bedtime.
And we got it done. And, one of the things that well, and
Alyssa, one of the things I think is that the people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us. And they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day. I mean, he'd get up, he'd put in a full day, and then at night I'd be in bed, reading my book, and he was still on the phone reading his briefings, working with staff. I mean, it was nonstop. It's the White House. Being president is not like a job. It's a lifestyle. It's a life that you live. You live it 24 hours a day. That phone can ring at 11 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning. It's constant. You never leave it. And Joe worked really hard. I think he was a great president.
Now, if this appearance was supposed to convince Americans that Joe Biden is still mentally sharp, that certainly failed.
The projects, the benefits. How do you lead the world without having the best infrastructure in the world? How do you lead the world without having the best healthcare in the world? How do you lead the world without having the best education system in the world? How do you lead the world when you don't have that done?
Now, this comes after Joe Biden sat down with BBC, where he claimed he had no regrets about leaving it so late to drop out of the election race. Joining us now is elections correspondent at The Federalist, Brianna Lyman. Brianna, great to see you again. Former US President Joe Biden has sat down for an interview with the BBC, and just as we witnessed time and time again last year, he showed up, but it's like he's barely there. He takes long pauses, he mumbles, he whispers. It's hard to really know what he's exactly saying, but he, of course, took the opportunity to rip right into Donald Trump, claiming that Trump hasn't achieved anything triumphant in his first 100 days.
What does President Biden say about Trump's first 100 days?
I'll let history judge that. I don't see anything that was triumphant.
And you see things to worry about. Do you, when you talk of a threat to democracy, worry about a threat to democracy here at home, here in the United States?
I'm less concerned about that than I was, because I think the Republican Party is waking up to what Trump is about.
Do you think they may fight back?
I think the beginning, yes.
Isn't it interesting, Brianna? All last year we heard from Joe Biden and the Democrats that Trump was a threat to democracy, and now it turns out that democracy hasn't ended and there are no signs that it is ending anytime soon with Donald Trump in power. But I want to get your reaction. What are your thoughts on this interview from Joe Biden?
Yeah, I think three main points. First of all, on the democracy, I have no idea what he's talking about when he says that Republicans are kind of like wisening up to it. Couldn't tell you what he's talking about. Second of all, no one is talking about this interview here the way that it probably would have been if this was, let's say, Obama reflecting in Donald Trump's first term, right? You would think there'd be more fanfare. It's not. Lastly, he says that there have been no accomplishments. And I've written about this. Donald Trump has done several things that are important. But the number one thing Donald Trump did, which if it was his only accomplishment would have been more than enough to sustain us for 4 years, is he shut down the southern border that Joe Biden left open. It was the Biden administration that used a forklift to open up the fences that Texas had, right? And Donald Trump shut it down completely. We have record low crossings across the border. We're not releasing people into the interior of the United States. So for Joe Biden to say that he's done nothing, either Joe Biden is trying to cover up for what he did for 4 years, or he legitimately is mentally ill and doesn't see what Donald Trump has done.
Well said. Well, let's talk about what is happening in the United States. There's been a breakthrough in the tariff standoff between the US and China. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and the US Trade Representative will meet with Chinese officials in Switzerland this weekend. Now, Scott Bessent says that the focus will be on de-escalation.
Well, I think that this is what we're going to do in Switzerland is we've agreed to talk. Then on Saturday and Sunday, we will agree what we're going to talk about. My sense is that this will be about de-escalation, not about the big trade deal.
While many countries received a 90-day reprieve for Liberation Day tariffs above the baseline rate of 10% last month, the US, of course, increased the overall penalty on Chinese goods to 145%. Beijing responded by raising tariffs on US goods to 125%. Now, Donald Trump was asked about the talks today. This is what he had to say.
We'll see. I mean, look, it's... We were losing $1 trillion a year. Now we're not losing anything, you know? That's the way I look at it. We were losing with China on trade $1 trillion a year. More, actually. 1.1. But let's say $1 trillion. You know what we're losing now? Nothing. That's not bad.
Plenty of people, of course, want to see a fair deal made. What can we expect from this first meeting?
Well, I think Scott Bessent has proven himself time and time again throughout his long career about the type of negotiator he is. And Donald Trump and Scott Bessent are both on the same page, and they're very clear. This is about leveling the playing field, because it's not that China just has, or, you know, other countries don't have tariffs on us, we have tariffs on them, vice versa, however it works, right? It's that China engages in things like debt trap diplomacy, currency manipulation. They ship things to Mexico so that they can bypass tariffs because of the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement that Donald Trump got in his first term, right? So there's a lot of different things that we have to do right now over the next 4 years to level that playing field. There is a lot of talk domestically. Mike Pence said it, you know, cheaper goods is part of the American dream. People are worried about these tariffs with China. At the end of the day, there is no cheap good that is worth the expense of losing all of our manufacturing and losing to China in this trade war. So I'm hopeful for these talks. I think that they're not going to back down. It's a game of chicken, and I think China will back down first.
Okay, we will wait and see. I suppose those talks have happened sooner than expected, some might say.